Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to Future Proof, the podcast where we decode how founders, leaders, and execs are working smarter by using AI systems and automation. And if you're looking to future-proof your business, you're definitely in the right place. And real quick, before we jump into today's episode, we always say, we build AI micro solutions. If you want to do a collaboration call with us, no pitch. We're always looking to help. There'll be links in the show notes. Just book a 30-minute call with us. We're happy to help. But let's jump into today's episode. I am joined today by the CEO of Tap Into, Michael Shapiro. Michael, thank you for joining and spending some time with us.
Brent, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So as we always do, we're going to dive right in. Let's talk about your background. I call it the leader's journey. Let's talk about everything leading up to you starting Tap Into. And you have a really cool story of how this happened. So let's do that.
Sure. 16 years ago, I started a local news site in my old hometown of New Providence, New Jersey. How it came about was, at the time I was an attorney in New York. I was commuting back and forth from New Jersey. And we found out that my son, who was 1, now he's 18 and he's fine, but we found out that he needed open heart surgery. And it really made me rethink what I was doing. And I decided, I wanted to do something that could help the community, where I could actually see my wife and son and do something that I was passionate about. So I started this local news site in New Providence. And within a few weeks, people in our 2 neighboring towns, Berkeley Heights and Summit, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we heard about this. Can you start this in our town?" And I did. And I soon found myself running 3 local news sites myself. I left my job in New York to do it full time. And my original vision was just to grow those 3 sites, their traffic, their revenue, their content. And over a period of about 3 years, I was able to bring them to profitability, bring on a full-time editor, a full-time reporter. But I started getting more and more requests from people to expand to their town. And I had to keep saying no, because I couldn't do any more local news sites myself. Right. So I started thinking, how could we expand yet keep it really local? And it took me a couple of years, but eventually I came up with this idea of applying a franchise model to local news. And we started franchising at the end of 2013. And today we have 98 franchise Tap Into sites that cover 150 towns. Most of them are in New Jersey, but we have several in Florida, 1 in New York, 1 in Pennsylvania, and we can franchise pretty much anywhere in the country. And it's really a solution to the crisis in local news today. There's over 1,800 towns in the country that have no local newspaper, no local news site. And this helps to fill those news deserts with original local news reporting and create what I call incubators of entrepreneurship in towns across the country.
Heck yeah. So for everybody watching, just make sure you heard what Michael just said. There's 1,800 towns that need this service. And here's a plug and play model. So if you're an entrepreneur watching this, please make sure you get in touch with Michael and talk through this. This is, like you said, very, very sorely needed, right? Because, I always say, Michael, and tell me what you think, everything kind of comes full circle, right? We kind of went crazy globalization and kind of, with the internet, and it went just bananas. But, right, we're kind of circling back to local needs, that presence, and it's shrinking, right? So where do you go to get all that? And it's so disjointed right now. And so what Tap Into does is amazing to me. And I think more people, more towns need this.
Yeah, and it helps bring the whole community together. I mean, I think one of the things we've seen over the last 20 years is really the fabric of community being torn apart. When you have Tap Into local news site in your community, it brings everyone together because, 1, we're providing original local news reporting in that community. The residents of the community know what's going on. The government is more transparent and accountable because they know people are watching. Local businesses are marketing on the site. And then local residents are patronizing those businesses, making that small business community stronger. So it's a win-win for everybody when there's a local news site that's in their community.
Yeah. And the fact that you're kind of, really Northeast regional based right now for most of it, and plus Florida, means that the whole middle of the country and the West Coast is, needs this in a big, big way. So that's fantastic. And, there's no reason for this not to be everywhere. Because I agree with you. If there was a Tap Into where I am, that would be a site we use all the time. We're always trying to figure out who has all the local things that we could pull together. So I love your model. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think one of the problems we've seen in the industry in general is this kind of media conglomerations, right? Where these
Yeah.
big media companies who lose touch with the community because they become multinational corporations, publicly traded, et cetera, they're
Right.
slashing their newsrooms. So this model, our model kind of flips that on its head. It puts the people of the community in power, right, to own and
Yeah.
operate their own local news site within our infrastructure and returns local news to the communities that it serves. And so we're really excited about the model and its success to date. And hopefully we can expand it to other towns and other states.
Heck yeah. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. So tell me a little bit about your vision for the next year to two, right? I think with where, and we'll get into AI here in a second, but I think I always say is that we used to do 5-year plans. I don't think you could do that anymore. I think you have to do much shorter iterative planning, right? So if I look out the next year to 18 months, 2 years max, what do you see for Tap Into? And this is kind of where your other branding comes into play. And I think people will be really excited to hear about.
Yeah, sure. So we're really focused on increasing revenue streams for our franchisees this year, and both through technology as well as new offerings to increase everybody's revenue as franchisees in the system. The second thing we're focused on is about a year ago, some existing publishers approached me and said, "Hey, we love your technology. Could you figure out a way so that we could use your technology, but keep our own brand?" And so in January, we launched our sister company called Hyperlocal News Network, where we're able to license our platform as well as our back office services to existing publishers, whether they be local news publishers, niche publications, can be a statewide business magazine, et cetera, and where they're on our platform, are able to take advantage of our technology, but are able to keep their own branding. They're not branded as Tap Into. The way that I look at it is Tap Into helps us fill news deserts all over the country, whereas Hyperlocal News Network helps us help existing publishers that either don't have an online site, don't have a good online site, or would otherwise want to monetize their online site better than they're currently doing. You put this all together, it becomes the largest collaborative network of publishers in the country. Because one of the cool things about the technology we've developed is that all the publishers in the network can seamlessly share content with each other, and they can sell advertising into each other, making it fully scalable, both on the content side and on the advertising side.
Yes, I could see that model really proliferating, right? And the cool part is for the publishers and your franchisees, the data that you're able to collect and the metrics in which you're able to showcase can really show how that footprint takes hold and what the opportunities are. I could see you unlocking multiple ways of revenue stream for this.
Yeah, and when you think about local businesses as well as regional businesses, they're typically looking to market not only in the community that they serve, but in neighboring communities. So these models really work well to be able to achieve those goals. And there's so many companies now, regional, statewide companies that are looking to go get local. And what better way to do it than on Tap Into sites or hyperlocal news sites or combination of those?
A combination, right?
In the communities that they serve.
Yeah. And the fact that you have the back engine or the back plane of all that connected, right? And they're all using the same technology means it makes it much easier for you to empower them to share and cross-pollinate, which is phenomenal, right? Because like you said, if you're in one area, you might want to be able to advertise across the whole network, right? There's not just the local, but just depending on what it is. But I think it opens up your advertising channels. And I think that, especially if you continue to add publishers, right? To the hyperlocal. And to me, that's really, really cool because like you said, I think there's a lot of publishers that are realizing that there's tremendous value in understanding different communities' needs and how to advertise into them, right? To give them, because to me, what AI is doing, and we'll get into this in a second, but it is making the experience, right? Especially with advertising and marketing, so much more personalized. And there's nothing better than to understand how different communities, what their needs are and serving them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that you see with publishers across the country is they're typically struggling with 10 different vendors for all the different services they need and things like that. Well, what we do is we put it all under one roof. They don't have to deal with that. We deal with all of that. And they also, it saves them so much time. It saves them so much money. And for example, one of our aspects of our content management system we developed is this DIY marketing platform, which actually won first place last year from the Local Media Association in their national competition for innovation.
Nice.
Where businesses, nonprofits, the government can go on. They can submit press releases, events for the calendar, if they're a realtor, real estate listings, et cetera, a variety of different types of content, pay per publication those payments split out to those publishers, and then the content goes to that publisher for publication. And just on the tap into side, it saves every one of our publishers hundreds of hours a year, because what used to happen was every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the town would be sending in, emailing in, here's my press release, here's my event listing, put it on your site. So one, it would take them a ton of time. Two, they're making no money from it. So now it's a revenue stream, and they're saving hundreds of hours of time a year.
That's a win-win-win all the way around. See, this is, to me, what my podcast is all about, which is how do we showcase how technology and smart thinking like this makes life easier for everybody involved. And I love your model, Michael. That is phenomenal. So congratulations on that. I actually think your only goal is to grow that footprint, because it makes, like, to your point, it reduces that need to contact hundreds of vendors to accomplish the same thing. And it allows distribution to happen much more seamlessly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, so let's jump into, right? Because again, now I can start to visualize how emerging tech can only empower your model, right? So how do you see it, right? AI data on, especially the data you're collecting, and if you can, use AI to make better sense of that for your publishers and your franchisees, and the vendors that want to, advertise through you guys. So it's, like I said, there's solutions all the way around. How do you see it?
Yeah, well, currently we use AI to that our franchisees or our licensees can use AI to suggest headlines for their stories, meta descriptions for their articles. This year, we're developing using it to suggest captions for photos, suggesting alt text for photos. Part of our CMS enables our publishers, when they publish their content on the platform, to also have it posted to social media. So another thing we're developing this year for AI is suggesting the excerpt that should go on Facebook or should go on X, and using it that way. The other, what we're starting to experiment, but we're in the really early stages, is how to use AI to prospect for advertisers. Because I think there's a lot of use of that for our franchisees and our licensees that could be a lot of help. And then eventually I'd like to figure out a way that we could utilize AI to find good franchisees and good licensees. Because that's the one part of the business that currently is not scalable, because it's just kind of me doing podcasts or panels and things like that to kind of get the word out about what we're doing.
Yeah, remind me. I have a bunch of resources for you to help make that easier for you. That's an easy one to solve. But I get your point, because again, as a founder and a CEO, you can only wear so many hats, right? There's only so many hours in a day, and that, to me, this is why you using AI in the best possible ROI. When I say ROI, it doesn't mean revenue. It's how do I get return on my time?
Yeah.
Right. And get the mundane stuff out, right? How do you get that data faster so you can get, you can make that impact faster? So what really good stuff, Michael. We'll be talking about that. So how do you see, like, have you explored because that's for, right, you guys at the home base, right, at the mothership. How do you see it for your franchisees and your publishers, right? How can they use this emerging technology in your mind to start to, move the needle for that? Because to me, it's a flywheel, right? If they learn it, they can feed it back to you, and you say, "Oh, that's a great idea. We can put that in." How does that balance work?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the the AI technology we just talked about is really for the franchisees, right? Because it's for them to save time and also for them to bring in more advertising revenue. The idea of using AI to find franchisees and licensees, that would be for us, but everything else would be for them. But I mean, one of the things we're also starting to explore is implementing AI to enable, for example, when inputting like the video of a council meeting, and then generating a transcript from that then the professional reporter can take that transcript, watch the video, make sure the quotes are correct, and then rewrite it into an original local news story. It still takes human, and that saves hours of time. It still takes a professional journalist to do that well. You can't just run AI and take the transcript meeting and publish it. But it saves hours of time if you can implement that. And if you imagine that, say, time savings, like a typical council meeting or board of ed meeting might last 2 or 3 hours, right? So if you can take the amount of time that it takes to do the notes from that meeting down from hours to 5 minutes, that makes a huge difference. And then you multiply that across 98 tap into sites, as well as multiple meetings per month. You can just
Yeah.
imagine the time savings that can do.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect example for everybody listening. What Michael just talked about is it's a perfect example of finding a use case that really does have a major impact. And to me, that's how every founder, CEO, leader should be thinking, right? Because it's one of those big things that you don't even think twice. Sometimes you don't even think twice about. You're like, wow, man, that would take forever. Can we document that workflow really quickly and just say, hey, where could AI be inserted to reduce this effort, right? To make it, because the impact to your subscribers and your users and your consumers of all this is massive, right? If you can get that stuff out there in a better way.
Yeah, and that would also enable those stories to get published in a more quick way too,
Yeah.
so that so it saves time for all the franchisees in the network, and it
Yeah.
provides the readers with the story earlier than they're currently receiving it. So it's a win-win for everybody. It's just that it's really important to be accurate and have that human
Totally
review
agree.
of everything.
Yeah, we call that human in the loop, right? You always want a human in the loop, right? To make sure, yeah. Wait, that quote, that's not exactly what that person said, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly right.
So, Michael, talk to me about your vision down the road. Is it Hyperlocal News Network growth? Obviously, the franchisees for tap into 1,800 towns at least that need this. But how do you handle your focus, right? Because you got to both of those are tremendous channels, and they both need care and attention.
Yeah, I mean that's a challenge for us because with the launch of Hyperlocal News Network in January, our staffing did not increase. So now we're running two companies instead of one company.
Yeah.
But like the strategy is pretty similar, which is you're just trying to get the word out about the franchising side and also getting the word out to publishers about the Hyperlocal News Network side. But in terms of like the next 12 to 18 months or so, I'd like to get to the point where we can bring on a person handling business development and also a person that can handle marketing. Because right now I'm doing that in addition to doing everything else that I do.
Right.
So I'm only able to spend, 5 to 10% of my time on each of those things when really we'd be able to make so much more progress if we had people dedicated to it.
Yeah. Wow. And your model to me is so needed, right? I think about, so I'm here in Charlotte, right? And there's, 6-10 different things that my wife and I just, for example, follow to find out where the local stuff is, right? And that's not even considering the events, the news, right? And we're north of Charlotte, so that's just Charlotte, and then we have our town of Concord and the surrounding towns, right? Which is kind of how your model works. And I'm thinking, man, if we had one place to go where that was centralized, and we could really learn about everything we need to do, board meetings, what's happening in local government, all of that. Like, I don't know anybody living in any town that wouldn't want that resource. So to me, I think this is fantastic. And I'm from New Jersey originally. So I'm like, wait, where was this my whole life?
Oh, that's cool. What town in New Jersey were you from?
I grew up like a little south of Cherry Hill in South Jersey.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. And I went to Rutgers undergrad, so I'm a Jersey guy. And but as you probably know, I moved to Florida about 6 years ago to help take care of my parents. That's why we have now 4 and soon to be 5 franchisees down here in Florida. I just met them at different events and things like that. And they were like, hey, that's cool. I want to start it down here.
That's excellent. Well, I hope you take over the whole state. My brother and his wife live down there. And honestly, everybody needs it, right? I mean, just what you have is that, like, again, I always think everything, technology, business models, everything comes full circle, right? And like, I feel like we went, like you said, big corporate conglomerates, and now they're realizing, man, there's tremendous value in understanding the nuance of these local areas, because they consume things differently, they shop differently. Like, not everyone's not created equal, right?
Yeah, and that's why this model is flexible. So, like for example, in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, high school football is a huge thing. So they do a lot of high school football coverage. But you go to South Plainfield, New Jersey, they're wrestling, high school wrestling is their big thing. So they have a lot of high school wrestling. So this model accounts for that. And I think also the beauty of the model is it democratizes media ownership, right?
Yes.
So media ownership in the hands of people on the local level at a low buy-in price. Like you don't have to be anywhere near a millionaire or anything close to it to own your own local news outlet.
Yes.
And so it opens that up too, because I think that there's so many people in the country that would want to do something like this, but they look at what's out there and they don't have the means to do it. But with this model, they have, pretty much everybody in the country has the means to do something like this.
Absolutely. And the fact that you have the underlying technology to empower this makes this so much easier. And the thing I give you the most credit, I know I have friends that bought franchises, have been in the franchise world, right, in different areas, in fitness and in food and all kinds of them. And I hear all the stories, right, of, the franchise focusing on selling more franchises and not doing what you just talked about is helping them grow their revenue. And the fact that you're thinking through that for your franchisees is awesome, right? Because like one hand goes with the other and you make everything a win-win, and who doesn't want to sign up?
Yeah. And the way that I purposely constructed the model is if the franchisee's successful, we're successful. If they're not successful, we're not successful. A lot of franchise systems out there, they charge like a large franchise fee and things like that, and they make a lot of money off that franchise fee. We don't. Like where we break even and eventually make a profit is on a small revenue share. That's
right.
it. So that's how it works. And as a result of that, like our interests are 100% aligned with the franchisees and the network, which I think is really the way that it should work.
That's the way it should work. Yes. Yeah. And it incentivizes you, right, and your team to build things for the franchisees, right, to help them grow their revenue. So, right, that's the perfect partnership.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing is we have 6 full-time developers that are constantly working on new features, new revenue streams, and things like that. And that's where we invest. Like a good chunk of our budget is in the technology side, because we always need to be best in class and always be pushing the envelope to create the best reader experience, the best advertiser experience, and the best experience for our franchisees, and always kind of pushing the ball forward, because just like with AI, everything's constantly changing and you always need to be at the front of it,
Exactly. I love it. All right. So last question, I said I would ask you if you could fix one thing, right? And let's just talk it at the corporate level, not at the franchisees level, right? If you could fix one thing in your business with AI tomorrow that you think would really help you move the needle, what would that be?
Yeah. And I don't know if this fits in there, but figuring out a way to use AI to raise public awareness of what we're doing. I don't know if there's an application like that, but that would be really helpful, because that's our challenge. Like what we need is kind of like a megaphone. And and that's the challenge, because we're fully scalable on every aspect of the business, but it's getting the word out that we exist. That's the biggest challenge for us. So it'd be interesting to see if there's some way that AI could help us with something like that.
Yeah. So last question on that is your ideal prospect an entrepreneur, or is it a certain type of business or industry like advertising?
Yeah. So on the franchising side, our best prospect is somebody who is an entrepreneur, who has a business background, a sales background, or a business development background, who will typically partner with or hire a writer or journalist to do the content side of the business. And then what they'll usually do is they'll do a tap into site part-time, because the sales side of the business is typically like 5 to 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
Or they'll do multiple franchises and do it full-time. The people we're most looking for are people that are entrepreneurs that would want to do this. The second group of people who could do it are people that have journalism or writing backgrounds, but then they either need someone to do the sales, or they need to have the sales
BD rep, right?
To do it. Some journalists do have the sales skills to be able to do it themselves. And we have like Westfield, New Jersey, one of our most successful franchisees. She's a journalist, but she also does the sales, and she just happens to be great at it.
At both, right.
Those people are hard to find.
I was going to say, they're more unicorns than they are the norm.
Exactly.
Yes. Believe me, every business has that challenge. So you're not alone. Michael, I love what you're doing. Like, can't wait to figure out, just how to give you ideas to help you guys grow, because I think, I wish you were here in our local markets. Please tell everybody that's thinking, hey, man, I want to talk to Michael about this. Tell me how they get in touch. Tell everybody.
Well, sure. There's a number of ways to get in touch with me. One, you can go to StartTap, STARTTAP.net. And there you'll see our upcoming webinars. You'll be able to get on my calendar. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Michael Shapiro, and I would love to connect with you there. And I would love to hear from anybody, even if people just want to comment on the model or brainstorm about journalism or anything like that. I would love to hear from everybody and really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and we'll have all the links below in the show notes, guys. So this is great. Michael, thank you for spending time with us, and best of luck to you. And please, start making a dent into those other 1,800 towns, guys.
I'm on it. Brent, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, hey, that wraps up this episode of Future Proofed, where we always say future proof what matters in your business, which is the core elements. and automate the rest. Thanks, guys.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.